I have seen a trend over the past several months of playing video games on my phone. I didn't used to play video games on my phone for quite a long time. When I first got a phone and was living in West Allis, um, I had a game on my phone and I would play it, and I would play it till late at night, past my bedtime, and then I would go to sleep. And I would not sleep well. And this was even after I had my sleep apnea machine. I discovered that I was just having trouble sleeping. And I thought about it and I said, okay, well, maybe the problem is that I'm playing video games right before I go to bed. So I'm not going to do that anymore to see what happens. And sure enough, once I stopped doing that, I slept better, a lot better. The intensity of the game, sometimes it was aggravating, sometimes it was stressful, annoying, frustrating because of other players who were attacking me for no reason other than that they could, and were much larger, so I couldn't do anything about it. You know, kind of the bully situation that we deal with in real life that's caused a lot of mass shootings in schools. um, so yeah, but avoiding all that stress before work, before sleep, caused me to sleep better. And but yeah, so recently I started playing games again at work, and this is because I had switched phones, and on my old phone, it very easily gave me access to news that I was interested by, which was like technology and science and stuff. And with my new phone, which is the phone I'm using right now, and is a much better phone, it doesn't provide me that easily. So I kind of lost interest, and I decided, well, I'll just try a video game. And one video game turned into lots of other video games. But one thing that I have noticed, see, these are all ad-driven video games, and I'm fine with that because I'd rather have ad-driven video games than data-stealing video games, where they take your personal data and they sell it to people, so people can build a profile on you and stuff. I noticed first with word search games that the word search games were geared in such a way to say, hey, you play this game and this game's going to tell you what your intelligence is, your IQ. And then I noticed that this trend started cropping up in other kinds of games as well. Like there's a puzzle game where you have 2 points that are the same color, and there will be other pairs of points that are the same color, and you have to be able to draw a line from one to the other with none of them intersecting each other. And that one now is all did not used to, but is now also saying this is your IQ based on your performance. And there are some other games that are doing the same thing. Now, I take exception to this. Why? When I was teaching in Indonesia, I did some research on IQ and on multiple intelligences, which is a theory put forth by a Harvard professor named Howard Gardner. And although it's not entirely accurate, and I don't think it's been proven to be correct yet, it does definitely map things out in a very sensible way and explains why different people with the same IQ perform differently on different subjects. And that is because for each subject, be it science or language or math or art, physical, dancing, all these things require different skill sets. Now, there is overlap, obviously. I mean, if you're doing science, you will sometimes use a good deal of math, especially in chemistry and physics and quantum physics and stuff like that. And it also even includes the realm of emotional intelligence, which is broken down into social intelligence and your personal intelligence. Emotional intelligence, as in what's called in the field is called affective, which is basically just another way of saying emotional, not effective, but affective, AFF. And it's referring to your ability to monitor and keep control of your own emotional state. And so Howard Gardner's theory expounds that we have all these different realms of expertise And that's part of the reason why, or the main reason why, we cannot all perform exactly the same with the same IQ. So what is an IQ? Well, an IQ, as far as I've been able to determine, the vast majority of IQ tests, especially the ones that are commonly used by schools, are not actually IQ tests. They are tests of learned knowledge in very specific categories. Learned knowledge and skills, sorry. So you could have a person who is a genius but has never attended school, never has studied anything, and they will perform very poorly on standardized IQ tests for the very simple reason that the vast majority of the information that they need to know, which is language, science, and math, they haven't developed it. If they haven't developed it, it would take somebody who would be extremely intelligent and be able to intuit the answers on a fairly high level of accuracy. And that's not what most people can do. Even at the genius level, a lot of people can't do that because there's just so much specialized knowledge. There's knowledge that is historical in nature. So there's really no way. There are, and I don't know how to do this, but there are ways to test people's different intelligences without testing the knowledge that is requisite in a standardized IQ test. So again, when you're looking at a standardized IQ test, you're looking at a test that is primarily about math, science, and language. And so that only touches on a small portion of all the skills that we have as human beings, including the ability to manipulate things, the ability to use our bodies gracefully and accurately, the ability to perform feats of sports, amazing feats of acrobatics and things like that, martial arts. So when I look at a game and it says it's going to tell you your IQ by playing this game. Okay, now I have in the past seen games that have a wide range of different types of activities. So in some cases, none of it used language. In other games, it used language as part of the test. So obviously, you would have to have a particularly high level of ability in language, but also in analysis to be able to determine an unknown language's meaning. And that's not something that comes easy. There are people who can suss things out over time, but even very famous people, such as Elizabeth and William Friedman, who are talked about in this book, although it's primarily about Elizabeth, these people were very much geniuses, and they were also very well educated, and they were able to become worldwide leaders in the art of code breaking. Or cryptoanalysis, to the point that they had books published, and although the person who was paying them took all the credit, and especially from her, these books were all over the world, and this was prior to World War II, when the Allies invaded and took control of Germany. And William was taken along to investigate top secret sites, and he discovered his books at these sites, translated into German. And their books were all over the world. In every country, they were being used to guide other people who had not figured out cryptoanalysis by themselves how to do it. So William ended up being the leader of an organization within the military during World War II for analyzing and spreading information about what the Nazis and the Italians and the Japanese were communicating in their codes using the Enigma machine, which was cracked, and also other machines. And at the same time, Elizabeth had been hired prior to the war and during Prohibition by the Coast Guard to work for them to deal with the smugglers, to break their trafficking rings. And she was very, very good at that. J. Edgar Hoover, who was a scumbag and ran the FBI, and he was very, very, very good at taking credit for other people's work. So she and her team, she had to form a team and train them all, did an excellent job of cracking codes and stuff like that. And J. Edgar Hoover always took credit for it and never allowed people to know. Now, prior to J. Edgar Hoover, she often was credited with breaking open cases and was in court as a key witness, an expert witness, explaining how she broke the codes. And she became quite famous because of that. But once J. Edgar Hoover got into the show, he kind of took almost all the glory from her. She was actually kind of relieved. She didn't feel very comfortable being in the public eye. Eventually, she was co-opted because the Coast Guard used to be independent, but then it was folded into the Navy. And at that point, since the Navy had control over the Coast Guard, they had control over her, and she was forced to work directly for the Navy in a more important capacity, but at the same time, whereas she had been the leader and the creator of the code-breaking team, an officer was given control, somebody who didn't have anywhere near her level of understanding of code-breaking, and they butted heads, but eventually the team was able to break Enigma codes and other things like this. And this was, I'm going off the subject here a bit, but the point is that what they did, the books they were able to write about code breaking, did not happen during a test period. Not in a day, not in a week, not in a month. It took them years to develop the toolkit that they had for cracking codes. Now, granted, a lot of what they could use, what they developed in the early years was applicable to all code breaking, but there were always advances that were happening, especially the machines, incorporate code breaking. So they actually had to learn how to reverse engineer the machines that were making the codes without actually having the machine. They had to do it based solely on the messages that were being transmitted, which is, if you think about it, pretty remarkable. I mean, can you imagine trying to reverse engineer a computer that is sending data without actually having access to the computer, just based on the data? So this was all because of expertise, particular intelligences in the realm of math and language, specifically, as well as some other areas. And whereas William was lauded as a hero, Elizabeth was buried. In fact, they are a primary reason why the CIA and NSA came into being. Not that they created them, but their work led to, post-World War II, the creation eventually of the CIA and the NSA, although there were organizations before or between those 2 points that had different names, but they were the predecessors of the CIA and NSA. And so you can trace the roots of the CIA and the NSA back to World War II, and you can trace the originators. The primary reason they were able to do what they do is because of the work of William and Elizabeth Friedman, who were not really treated well at certain points. And in fact, William often suffered from mental breakdowns, and eventually he collapsed and he just died. And it's a sad story, but I mean, it's also an amazing story. I highly recommend this, by the way. But getting back to the subject, if you see a game and it's doing one kind of activity, or even 10 kinds of activities, and it's claiming it's going to tell you your IQ, that is highly unlikely. It would have to do a whole range of activities, including physical activities, which, a lot of phones are not going to be able to accurately evaluate your movements, even using the sensors that are built in, the motion sensors. So, if you're gonna be interested in your IQ, your real IQ, not your school-born English language, science and math IQ, which is just a portion of the pie, because there's so much more. I mean, there's music and there's all kinds of stuff. Then you're wasting your time. It's more of an ego thing than it's not useful. So don't waste your time getting games because they say they're going to tell you your IQ. They're not. They're just stroking your ego and vexing you if you can't do it. That's it. So sorry about the segue into the Friedmans and their amazing feats, which really were amazing. But that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day.